Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in lecture number 12. We are discussing Islamic modes of financing, and in our previous lecture we discussed the Murabha mode of financing, and in this lecture we are going to discuss Salam and Istisna mode of financing. So before we discuss the today's topic, let me remind you what we studied in our previous lecture. We discussed the concept of Murabha, its principles, and also different models of Murabha where the relationship of bank, client and the vendor would determine that what model it is. We discussed three models. In first model, there was a relationship between the bank as a seller of the asset and the client, the purchaser, and then in the second mode, we discussed the relationship of the bank, seller as a seller, then client and the vendor. So in that transaction, the client as the buyer would find out the vendor, the asset which is going to be purchased, and then the client would contact to the bank and the bank would purchase that asset from the particular vendor, and then there will be a Murabha transaction based on the offer and acceptance between the client and the bank. And the third model, which is widely practiced model in the Islamic financial institutions, that bank appoints the client as an agent, and then as an agent client would find out the vendor and the asset that is to be purchased, and then the bank will make payment to the vendor or through the agent, that is the client. So at each level, at each stage, the different documentation or different agreements would be required. And when the client has purchased the asset on behalf of the bank, then there will be an agreement of Murabha between the bank and the client using the offer and acceptance mode to make it a valid Murabha transaction. And then the modes of payment will be determined, and the agreement will be there between the bank and the as a seller and the client as a buyer. They can agree on the lump sum payment, and they can agree on an installment payment or a deferred mode of payment. And also we discussed the applications of Murabha in the import and export transaction and the issues involved in the Murabha transaction. And in our today's lecture, we are going to discuss the Salam and Istisna transactions. So the learning outcomes for this lecture is that you should be able to understand the two models of Islamic financing, that is Salam and parallel Salam, then Istisna and parallel Istisna. And the third learning outcome would be that you will be able to differentiate between the Salam and Istisna modes of financing, that what is the difference, what are the applications of these different modes, and how they are different from each other. So first of all, Salam, which is a forward purchase. Under Islamic financial system, for a valid sale, the seller must possess the physical asset. Otherwise, it's not a valid sale. But this is an exception in the Islamic financial system, that Salam, under the Salam contract, the seller, even not having the possession of that asset, or even that asset has not been produced, the seller can sell that asset. So we have a justification from the literature that a Salam transaction is the purchase of a commodity for deferred delivery in exchange for immediate payment. So in this transaction, payment will be made at the spot at the time of transaction, and it is a type of sale in which the price is known as the Salam capital and is paid at the time of contracting, while delivery of item to be sold, known as subject matter of Salam, is deferred. So this is a reversal of Murabha transaction. In Murabha transaction, the client used to purchase the asset from the bank for a deferred payment, and the delivery of the asset was at the spot. But in this case, the delivery of asset is deferred, whereas the payment of the asset is at the spot. And its uses are the purchase of commodities or financing for production of agricultural commodities and minerals. So it is particularly designed for the agriculture sector to finance the farmers. So that sale agreement actually is between the farmer and the bank. The bank will provide the finances at the time the agreement is signed. Our bank will make purchase at the time when the agreement is signed. The payment will be made at that place, but the farmer will use that capital to grow the particular crops, and then those crops as per agreement will be delivered to the bank. And another use is that it will help to solve the liquidity problems of the sugar mills, and there can be some other uses of this transaction as well. So is it a legitimate transaction? As we know that under Islamic economic system, in a sale transaction, the seller must be having a physical possession and the title and the ownership of the asset which is going to be sold. Whereas in this transaction, the payment is at the spot and the delivery of asset is in future. So let's see the legitimacy in Sharia. How is it allowed under the Sharia? Allah says, "O you who believe, when you deal with each other in transaction involving future obligations in a fixed period time, reduce them to writing." So it justifies that there can be future obligations while we have our agreements. There can be an agreement to make the payment in future, or there can be an agreement to make the delivery of assets in a future date. And then there is a hadith that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reported. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina and found that people were selling dates for deferred delivery. It was known as salam, after a duration of 1 or 2 years. Like people, they were selling their dates which were going to be manufactured or which were going to be produced after 1 or 2 years, and they were selling them at present. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever pays for dates on a deferred delivery basis should do so on the basis of specified scale and weight." It means he further endorsed it, and this hadith has been mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim. This is not a weak hadith. This is a Qawi hadith, so it has its strong reference. So this is allowed under the Islamic Sharia, that things can be sold which have not been manufactured yet, and it is particularly related to the agriculture sector or for the minerals which are going to be extracted from the ground. And this is not allowed, this relaxation is not applicable to any other product. This is particularly related to the agriculture sector and for the minerals. And the wisdom of allowing salam, it has some benefits. Beneficial for both seller and purchaser. Seller or the farmer can get capital to grow the crop and get better produce of the crop, while the buyer can be sure of its stocks and price. So there is a benefit for the seller and the buyer. The seller, the farmer, can sell the product in advance and get the cash or the price or the reward for the things which have not yet grown. So the farmer can utilize that capital and can grow a better crop. Maybe the farmer doesn't have enough capital to purchase fertilizers or good seed to grow the crop. So that particular transaction will enable the farmer to purchase good seed and to put fertilizers and to water the field at the right time. So in this case, the produce will increase. So you see, the value addition is again there in the economy. So even in this transaction, which is only a sale transaction, under Islamic financial system, value addition is possible in this transaction as well. So the capital which has been provided as a salam capital, which is the purchase price of the goods which have not yet grown, so the farmer can utilize this capital to multiply the product. So if the farmer was able to grow 1,000 kilograms of wheat from 1 acre of land, but with this salam capital, if the farmer can utilize, or if the farmer can use some good fertilizers, the farmer might grow 2,000 kilograms of wheat. And this is possible because in Pakistan, the average produce is somewhere around 800 to 1,000 kilograms of wheat. Whereas in some developed countries, so it is possible to grow to more than 4,000 kilograms of wheat. So with the fertilizers or different techniques, the other tools the farmer can use with that salam capital, the farmer can increase the produce of the field. And in this transaction, there are three major problems. First of all, the risk of default by the seller, because this involves the future obligation. The seller might default, and then there are certain circumstances, there are certain agreements which will be in place to make sure the seller doesn't default. And then banks need to liquidate goods after delivery, and the bank might have some liquidity problem because the bank has made the payment in advance and can realize the cash only after some time period, and this might be a problem for the bank. And at the third place, seller's inability to produce or procure the commodity. And then on behalf of the first contract, if the bank enters into any other contract, so there is a possibility that in the first contract the client might default and may not produce the crop, or it may not provide the crop to the bank. So in that case, the bank might be in a bad position. The principles of salam, first of all, it's an exception to the possession. As per Sharia, the things or the assets must be possessed by the seller, so this is an exception here. A contract opposite to murabha, as I mentioned earlier, that in murabha transaction, asset is delivered at the spot, whereas the payment is delayed. So this is a total reversal here, that asset will be delivered on the deferred basis, whereas the payment is made at the spot. And the payment of full price at spot, otherwise selling debt for debt. So the payment will be made at the spot, otherwise there will be a promise to pay, and then it will be just like selling of debt for debt, which is not allowed under the Islamic economic system. And it is allowed in fungible commodities. Fungible commodities, they are those commodities which can be replaced with the same kind of commodities. For example, if you are using car of your friend and the tank is full with the gasoline, so when you want to return the car, you don't need to return the same gasoline which you have consumed. You can go to the fuel station and you can refill the tank with another fuel. I mean, of the same kind of fuel, but it's not exactly the same fuel which you have already consumed. So the fungible goods are those goods which can be replaced by the same goods. So the currency can also be one of the examples, that the note of 1,000 rupees can be paid back if you have borrowed 1,000 rupees and you got one note of 1,000 rupees, you can pay it back in multiple notes that make up to 1,000 rupees, maybe 2 notes of 500 rupees or 10 notes of 100 rupees. And the same way, fungible goods like crops, wheat, rice, or any crop which is not perishable, which is not going to be perished within few days, so those goods can be the subject matter of this transaction. And product of a particular origin cannot be specified. So it is not advisable, or it is not recommended in this contract that the banker as a buyer cannot specify that I'm going to get the crop for this and this particular piece of land. Rather, the bank is concerned, if the agreement is for wheat, the bank should be concerned only with wheat. It might be grown at any piece of land. So the client as a seller can supply the commodity from any piece of land, or even if the seller could not grow the crop at his own place, the seller might purchase it from the market and supply it to under the contract. And the quality and quantity decided in unambiguous terms. So the quality and quantity will be mentioned into the contract. If it is rice, what rice? The super, basmati, or any other specification of rice. So there are different kinds of rice. So the quality and the quantity must be clearly mentioned into the contract. And there is a conflicting opinion about this point, this principle of salam, that the commodity which is the subject matter of this contract, it should remain all the time in the market. Like we have wheat and rice and different other goods which are always in the market, which has been grown in the agricultural areas, but there is a conflict of opinion between the scholars. It may be and it may not be the part of the market all the time. and the time of delivery should be sufficient to allow use of Salam capital conveniently. And this agreement should have enough time for the farmer, for the seller, to utilize that Salam capital. For example, if the wheat, which takes about 4 to 5 months to grow, if the agreement is only for 1 month, then this is not justified. So in case of wheat, the duration of the agreement should be at least 5 to 6 months. And accordingly, for each crop, which is not perishable crop, then the duration would be determined according to the duration the crop can be grown and it can be harvested. And a security or a guarantee is preferred as a safeguard to the risk of default. So bank or the financial institution can ask for certain securities because the risks are always there. The other party might go default. And the farmer, the seller, they may not be able to grow the crop, or they willfully they don't want to honor that contract. So in that case, there must be some guarantees. And only commodity is delivered and not the money. And finally, when the commodity at the mentioned time of the contract, it will be delivered from the seller to the buyer, the bank, but the money will not be delivered back. The commodity will be delivered back. And what is parallel salam? So as we know, bank is a financial institution and it has its own problems, financial problems. There might be some liquidity problems. So bank, if they have employed their liquid capital into different ventures, then they might face some liquidity problems. So in that case, the banks, they should have some different arrangements. So it is allowed in Sharia that after entering into a salam contract, bank may enter into another contract where the banker would become the seller. They will take the position of the farmer, and then they enter into another contract with the buyer. It may be any other bank or it may be any other entity. So then that will be known as parallel salam. So the disposal of commodity at the end of bank can be through different procedures. One is parallel salam, as I mentioned earlier, that bank can enter into another contract and it will be known as parallel salam contract. And for parallel salam contract, conditions, they are exactly the same as that of salam contract, that the price will be paid in advance and the delivery of the commodity will be in the future date. And the things to be remembered here, that both of these contracts, they are independent of each other. Fulfillment of one contract doesn't mean the second contract will be fulfilled. Even if the first contract is not honored, the second contract will be fulfilled. So they are both independent of each other. And another way to dispose of these commodities is that the bank will get some promise from the third parties to purchase those commodities when those commodities they arrive at the bank's place. So it is a promise of purchase and can be obtained from third party for delivery on the date of original contract. Price in this promise is set higher than the parallel salam because the promisor has to pay nothing. So this is logical that in a parallel salam contract, the price will be set for, let's suppose, 1 million rupees, and then if it is a promise to purchase, then the price will be higher than the parallel salam contract, because in the promise to purchase, price is not paid, whereas in parallel salam contract, price has been paid in advance. So in the promise to purchase, the price will be more than the parallel salam contract. And also in the parallel salam contract, price will be higher than in the salam contract. So the sequence is that in salam contract, if the price is, suppose in salam contract, if price is 10,000 rupees, then in parallel salam contract, price may be equal to 11,000 rupees. And if it is a promise to purchase by a third party, then the price might be 12,000 rupees. Because in this case, price is paid at the spot. And again, in the case of parallel salam, price is paid at the spot. And in case of promise, the time has involved into it. So the time duration is longer than in case of salam and parallel salam. They are the spot payments, so the price is lesser. And when the future has involved into it, so the price can be more. So the cash and credit price they can be different under the Islamic economic system. And rules of parallel salam and third party promise. Both contracts, salam and parallel salam, must be independent of each other. As I mentioned earlier, that the salam contract, there is a salam contract, and then to get rid of the commodities the bank receives, bank enter into a parallel salam contract. So these contracts, they are independent from each other. The parties here, they are the farmer and the bank. But in case of parallel salam, it can be between the bank and any other bank, bank A and bank B, suppose, or there can be any other entity, financial institution. So in both cases, the payment is made at the spot, and the fulfillment of one contract doesn't mean that in that case the second contract will be fulfilled. If the first contract is not fulfilled, then the second contract is independent of that. So bank A, which was the buyer in first contract, has promised to sell in the second contract. The agreement is in the parallel contract that bank A will provide the commodities on the fixed date. Then in the first contract, the bank has not been delivered the commodities, so the bank will purchase the commodities from the market and then deliver it to the bank, the third party, to the bank B. And at the same time, that parallel salam contract is only allowed with a third party. It cannot be that parallel salam contract cannot be between the original two parties which already entered into the salam contract. And the third party giving the unilateral promise should not pay the price in advance. And the third way, that is the unilateral promise to purchase those commodities, so in that case, the third party will not make the spot payment, rather it gives a promise to purchase the commodities when they are received. So these are the rules of parallel salam and third party promise. Now let's discuss the example of crop, wheat, when the bank and the farmer, they enter into a contract, how the things go. First of all, there is a contract against payment of the agreed price. Both the parties, they agree at a price of the commodity of the wheat, and then commodity to be delivered in 6 months. The time duration should be enough to grow the commodity, to grow the crop. It is 6 months, and the bank apprehends trend of depressed prices in the prospect or requires liquidity. And after the bank has entered into the salam contract, bank feels or apprehends that the prices are going to reduce, or there might be reduction in price in the future. So it is better to get rid of the commodities at this place, or there might be some liquidity problem with the bank. So then the bank can sell that commodity which has not been received by the bank by entering into parallel salam contract, which I explained earlier. And the second place, the bank can enter into any other contract to sell that asset. And the bank's position at disadvantage as compared to other purchasers contracting low spot price but cannot undo the contractual obligation. And there is a possibility that other banks, they are entering into salam contract at a lower price than this particular bank has entered. So the bank can keep the original contract and enter into another salam contract with the buyer expecting trend otherwise. So there must be some buyers in the market who feel that prices might rise, so they might be willing to purchase that commodity. So then the bank will enter into another contract, that is the parallel salam contract, and the third parties, they might promise to purchase those commodities. So the differentiation is that in the salam contract, what has been agreed as a price, and in the parallel salam contract, the price will be more than the salam price. And then in the promise to purchase, the price will be higher than the parallel salam contract, because in salam contracts, price is paid in advance at the spot, and in promise to purchase, the price will be paid in future. So the sequence is that in salam contract, price is at a level, then in parallel salam contract, price will be higher than the salam, and in case of promise to purchase, price will be more than both of the Salam and parallel Salam contract. And this is the structure of Salam and parallel Salam contract. So in the first place, you can see that in a Salam contract, there is bank is a buyer. So there is a contract between the bank and the seller. So in the first place, bank makes the payment for the deferred delivery of the subject matter of the sale. And in the second contract, bank is a seller and there is a buyer. This buyer may be another bank and this may be any other party. So here the bank receives the payment, receives the price right away, and the delivery is deferred, and the time duration of a Salam contract and the parallel Salam contract is of course different. Parallel Salam contract will be signed after the Salam contract, so the duration in parallel Salam contract is shorter and price will be higher than in the case of Salam contract. The next mode of financing, which is somewhat similar with the Salam contract, it is known as Istisna contract. So in this contract as well, this is also a mode of financing where the goods which are the subject matter of this sale transaction, they have not been manufactured yet. So in case of Salam, they were produced in the field or they might be extracted from the ground, from the land. But in case of Istisna, the subject matter of sale, the subject matter of sale should be manufactured. So the introduction, Istisna is a sale transaction where commodity is transacted before it comes into existence. Just like a Salam contract, commodities before they come into existence, they are transacted. It is an order to the producer or the manufacturer to manufacture a specific commodity for the purchaser. So the purchaser, which is the banker, they will enter into contract with the client to get those things manufactured. For maybe furniture, it may be any machinery. So there will be contract between the bank and the client, bank as a purchaser and the client as a seller for this particular contract. There are a lot of similarities between Salam and Istisna because in both cases goods have not been manufactured, goods have not been produced, and the payment is in advance. And in case of Istisna, the difference is that payment can be at the spot or it can be deferred and it can be in the on installment basis. In the conditions of Istisna, the subject of Istisna is always a thing which need manufacturing. Anything which has been manufactured naturally cannot be the subject matter of sale in case of Istisna. The things require manufacturing. It may be furniture or it may be anything which we are using in our offices, in hospitals or in different parts of the world that require manufacturing. And the manufacturer uses his own material, and the other principle is that manufacturer will use his or her own material. The bank will not supply the material. The purchaser will not supply the materials. Quality and quantity should be agreed in absolute terms. The things which are the subject matter should be mentioned very much clearly and specifically regarding their quality and the quantity. And the purchase price should be fixed with mutual consent. And the price must be known to each other and it should be fixed. And the price of Istisna, it can be spot or it can be deferred and it can be on the installment basis. So the Istisna is applicable where Salam is not applicable, because in case of Salam, the price must be paid in advance and it is at the spot, at the time of contract. And the price of Istisna can be paid in installments as per the agreement, and also the installment may be tied up with the different stages of manufacturing. For example, if the manufacturer has started manufacturing the required goods, the required commodities, then if the manufacturer has completed 10% of the manufacturing stage, then the 10% of the price will be paid. And when it reaches to 20%, the next 10% will be issued. And likewise, with different stages of completion, the price will be made to reach it to 100%. And these can be different methods, like on installments, and it can also be tied up with the stages of completion of that goods which are being manufactured. Right of rejection remains with the buyer. because when the required goods have been manufactured by the manufacturer, purchaser can exercise his right to reject the goods based on the defects in the manufactured goods, because in the contract the details have been mentioned about the quality and quantity of the goods. So if the produced or manufactured goods, they are not up to that standard, then the purchaser has the right to reject those goods. And in that case, there will be different mechanism for the to recover the payment which have been made in advance. And the revoking of istisna, to quit from this contract is also possible. The contract of istisna can be cancelled unilaterally before the manufacturer starts working. There is an agreement between the purchaser and the manufacturer, and the manufacturer has not yet started manufacturing the goods. It means until the time when the manufacturing starts, there is an option for the buyer and the manufacturer that both they can unilaterally cancel the contract. If they can find some favorable terms with some other party, and they can make sure that manufacturing has not yet started, and they can cancel that contract. The revocation is possible in that case. But if the manufacturing has started, then it is binding on both the parties to honor the contract. No party can unilaterally cancel the contract in this case. And now let's discuss the differences between salam and istisna contract. In istisna, the subject of istisna is always a thing which needs manufacturing, whereas in salam, the subject can be anything which can be grown from the fields in the agriculture sector, or it can be extracted from the mines, from the minerals, and the price in istisna doesn't necessarily need to be paid in full in advance. So the second difference, main difference, is that the price may not be paid in advance at the time of contract, whereas in case of salam, the price is paid in advance. It is a spot payment. And it makes binding both the parties that when the payment has been made, the contract has been signed, no party can quit from the contract unilaterally. Cancellation of the contract is not possible at that stage. Whereas in case of istisna, contract can be cancelled before the manufacturing process starts. And in case of istisna, time of delivery doesn't have to be fixed, but the stages of manufacture might be time bound. And in case of salam, the time of delivery is an essential part of the sale. In case of salam, exact time, the date is mentioned into the contract. For example, if it is a contract to deliver wheat, so the contract will mention clearly the exact date. For example, it might be on 1st of April, or it might be any other date, but date must be mentioned clearly. Any date which might be from any month, it must be mentioned clearly. And in case of istisna contract, date is not mentioned, but a time period is mentioned. For example, ComSets require furniture in their classrooms which have newly been constructed. So in that case, if the classes are going to start in February, the ComSets might enter into a contract with the manufacturer that the manufacturer would supply the furniture or the desks into the classrooms before February. So it might be until the middle of January, but a particular date will not be fixed. A time will be fixed that during the end of January, during the first 2 weeks of January, things like that. But there will be an end limit as well, because in this example, if the classes are going to start, suppose on 1st of February, so the furniture must be in place before 1st of February. So in that case, the delivery might start 2 weeks before, but it must be there before 1st of February. Because the installation or the placement of the furniture into the classrooms, it might take little time. So in that case, it is mentioned in the contract that the delivery should be before 1st of February, but it may start from the middle of January. So the date is not mentioned clearly or exactly in case of istisna. And to manage the risk involved into these contracts, how the securities are handled in this contract. A security is in the form of guarantee, mortgage, or hypothecation may be required for istisna in order to ensure that the manufacturer shall deliver the commodity on the agreed date. To make sure that manufacturer will honor the contract, there might be securities involved. And in the case of default in delivery, the guarantor may be asked to deliver the same commodity, and if there is a mortgage, the buyer can sell the mortgaged property and the sale proceeds can be used either to realize the required commodity by purchasing it from the market or to recover the price advanced by the purchaser. So in this case, if there is a security, if there is an asset pledged against this contract and the manufacturer fails to deliver the goods to the purchaser, so in that case that pledged property can be sold, and with the sale proceeds the required materials, the required goods can be purchased from the market, or it is also an option with the buyer, with the purchaser, that the property will be sold and whatever has been advanced to the manufacturer will be recovered out of it. So these options are available with the purchaser. And a little discussion about the time of delivery. It is not necessary in istisna that the time of delivery is fixed. However, the purchaser may fix a maximum time for delivery after the appointed time. He will not be bound to accept the goods and pay the price. If the goods are delivered after the promised time, like if it was mentioned in the contract that the furniture is required by the end of January, but it must reach before the February starts. So what does it mean? That February is the end time. So after that, if the manufacturer delivers, the purchaser has the right to refuse to take the delivery of those goods. And again, to make sure the manufacturer would deliver the commodities or the subject matter of that contract on time, there are different arrangements. For example, the penalties can be charged from the manufacturer. So if the penalties are charged, that penalties will not make part of income of the purchaser, but it will go to the charity. And another arrangement is that after particular time period which was fixed for delivery of those manufactured goods, if the goods are not delivered to the purchaser, then with every passing day the price of that commodity can be reduced by per unit or in the lump sum amount. For example, if there was an order placed to the manufacturer to produce heaters, so there was a limit that before the winter starts, that is before the month of November, during the October, the commodities, the manufactured goods or the heaters should be delivered to the purchaser. So in this case, it can be mentioned into the agreement that if the goods are delivered after 1st of November, the price per unit of heater will be reduced by 100 rupees per day or 100 rupees per week or things like that. Or it is also possible that the price can be reduced from the overall amount. For example, if the contract was for 10,000 rupees, suppose, and then the manufacturer could not supply the things on time, then with every passing day, the price will be reduced by 1%. So this is also possible. And also this is possible that out of the manufactured units, in this example we considered heaters. So if the price was for one heater was suppose 1,000 rupees, so the price can be reduced by 5% every day or every week or every month. So this is also an arrangement to make sure that manufacturer would supply the manufactured goods on time. And now we'll talk about the delivery of the manufactured goods, because goods, they are in the possession of different parties at different stages. So the risk will be different at different stages, and the risk will be faced by different people at different stages. For example, before delivery, goods will remain at the risk of the seller. So when the goods, they are at the place of seller, the manufacturer, the risk is with the seller. If any damage happens to those goods, that is not the loss of the buyer or the purchaser, rather it is the loss of the seller or the manufacturer. And after delivery, risk will be transferred to the purchaser. And even before that, if the goods are shipped using some transportation company, so during that transportation period, the risk will be faced by that transportation company, and when those goods have been delivered to the purchaser, the risk will be transferred to the purchaser. And the possession of goods can be physical or constructive. The goods can be delivered physically, or the beneficial use can be delivered to the purchaser. It may be physical possession or it may be constructive possession, and both will lead towards the physical possession. And the transferring of risk and authority of use and utilization or consumption are the basic ingredients of constructive possession. That is, the example of car, that if you get the key of a car which is locked and parked in the parking, so you have the constructive use or the constructive possession of that car. Whereas if you like you purchased that car but you did not get that car into your parking, you only got the key and the car is parked in the parking, so it means you got the key, now the constructive use and the constructive possession is with you. So it will become a physical possession when you take the key and you enter into the car, and now the risk is yours. And if the manufactured goods are delivered to the buyer, to the purchaser, before the agreed time period, the purchaser has the right to refuse to take the delivery. For example, if it is mentioned in the agreement that goods will be delivered after the second week of February, so before the second week of February, if the goods are offered to the purchaser might refuse. The purchaser has the right to refuse to take the possession of those manufactured goods. Now, just like salam and parallel salam contract, in case of istisna, a parallel istisna is also possible. So after the execution of istisna agreement with one party, buyer as a seller executes an other istisna agreement with a third party. So the purchaser in the first istisna contract can sell the goods even before they are received to the purchaser, can sell the goods to any third party and enter into a parallel istisna contract. And the conditions of parallel istisna are that there must be two different and independent contracts. These two contracts cannot be tied up, and performance of one should not be subject of the other. For example, if there is an istisna contract between the buyer and the seller, then if the buyer enters into any other contract to sell those commodities which are going to be received in some future date, then the second contract will be independent from the first contract, just like a parallel salam contract. Both contracts, they are independent of each other. Fulfillment of one doesn't mean that second will be fulfilled. They are both independent of each other. And parallel istisna is allowed with the third party only. Parallel istisna cannot be with between the same parties. There must be some independent third party in the market, and then the parallel salam contract is possible. And after the execution of istisna agreement with one party, buyer and a seller executes another istisna agreement with a third party. So just like in case of parallel salam contract, a parallel istisna contract can also take place, but with a third party. In case of istisna contract, client approaches the bank for the construction of certain goods. So suppose that the client approaches bank for the construction of, suppose, furniture. So in that case, bank doesn't have the specialization to manufacture the furniture, but bank will enter into an istisna contract with the client with the intention that bank will get the furniture manufactured by some third party and will deliver the furniture to the client. And then in the second contract, in the parallel istisna contract, bank will enter into a contract with the manufacturer. So here the manufacturer of the furniture will be the third party. So the bank will charge a price from the client, and then bank will purchase the same furniture or get it manufactured according to the required specification of the client from the manufacturer. So this is an istisna contract and this is a parallel istisna contract. And in both cases, bank will earn the difference of price. The price which is in the first contract, that is istisna contract, will be higher than the price bank will be paying to the manufacturer. So the difference will be the profit of the bank. And there must be two different and independent contracts. These two contracts cannot be tied up, and performance of one should not be subject to the other. And parallel istisna is allowed with third party only. And this figure would further elaborate the istisna and parallel istisna contract, that the buyer approaches the bank and payment the payment is according to the agreement. Payment may be at the spot, or maybe at some particular time period, or it may be linked with the stages of manufacture or any installment payment. And the delivery of the asset is deferred. And then, because bank is not a manufacturer, bank will enter into a contract with the contractor who is manufacturer of those required commodities or the assets, and the bank will make payment according to the agreement, and then delivery will be received by the bank, and accordingly those goods will be forwarded to the buyer. So this first part is an istisna contract, and this second part is a parallel istisna contract. So here these two parties, they are independent of each other. They should not be related to each other, and the bank can be the same party, but here the other two parties should be separate, and these two contracts of istisna and parallel istisna, they are independent of each other. Suppose in case of this parallel istisna contract, the contractor doesn't manufacture the required goods and this contract is not honored. In that case, the bank must purchase those commodities from the market according to the required specification and then deliver it to the client or the buyer in the first istisna contract. So the fulfillment of this part doesn't mean that this part will be honored. They are both independent of each other, and respectively they should be honored separately. And potential of istisna is that the client can get finance for raw material, working capital and other overhead expenses by the execution of istisna agreement. The contractor, they can, or the manufacturer, they can receive the payments, they can purchase the raw materials, and the required expenses can be met out of these payments. And its applications are particularly in the home financing, import and export products can also be designed according to the istisna contract. And we can have its application in the house financing, in the construction of houses, for the project financing, maybe for the infrastructure, or for the construction of any building, any bridge or roads, things like that. And the build, operate, transfer agreements, they can also be designed according to the istisna contract. In case of export of goods, the goods before shipment can be manufactured using this istisna mode. And there are different modes where this can be applied, like as mentioned earlier, house financing and project financing, build, operate, transfer agreements, and export pre-shipments. So these are different fields where istisna agreements can be designed according to the requirement of the parties involved into it. And there are certain risks, and how to mitigate those risks we mentioned in case of Salam, and now the risks are somewhat same. So the risk is that ownership of the material. In the Islamic bank is not the owner of the materials in the possession of the manufacturer for the purpose of producing the asset. So the first risk is that ownership of materials. So when there is an agreement between the client and as a seller and the bank as a purchaser for an istisna agreement, and there has been some payment, for example, a payment to purchase the raw materials. So those raw materials, they are not the property of the bank. Actually, those raw materials, the client as a seller is owner of those raw materials. So in this case, if the client goes default, so those raw materials are the ownership of the client. So in that case, bank doesn't have any entitlement or any ownership rights to those raw materials. So the security is available to the bank. So in the agreement, it will be mentioned that security for such and such default will be such and such property. And even it can be mentioned that the subject matter can be taken as security, or there must be some other products or other finished goods available at the facility of the manufacturer, and that can be taken as security as well. And the second risk is that delivery risk. The Islamic Bank may be unable to receive goods as scheduled due to the late delivery of completed goods and may not be able to honor the parallel istisna contract. So Islamic banks as a buyer might have entered into a parallel istisna contract, and then if the bank doesn't receive goods on time from its first contract, then the bank would be in a bad position. So this is a problem, this is a risk. So how the bank would mitigate that risk is that bank can reduce the istisna price in the first contract, and then the bank might purchase those commodities from the market and honor the second contract. But mostly banks would enter into a promise to purchase those commodities, so the bank can reduce the istisna price in case of late delivery. So the manufacturer would be at a bad position that if the price is reduced with every passing day. So it will be an obligation for the manufacturer, and it will be in the benefit of the manufacturer to produce or to manufacture the commodities or the goods on time and deliver it on the stipulated time as per agreement. And in our today's lecture, we discussed the new concepts, and they are quite new to you, and they are the sale modes. They are known as salam and istisna, and they are not allowed under Islamic economic system if we look the conventional, if we look at the definition of a valid sale transaction. But in the fiqh, we have the justification, we have the evidence that these two transactions, they are allowed and they are an exceptional case. There is a hadith about the salam contract that the Prophet ﷺ endorsed it, and he did not forbid us, it was not prohibited. So in today's lecture, we discuss the concept of salam and parallel salam, that there will be a contract between the bank and the farmer, most of the time, and to finance the agriculture sector. So the capital which will be implied in this transaction is known as salam capital, and it has its utilization, it has its benefits for the farmer and the banker as well. So the farmer can use that capital and to take care of the crop, and the produce might be more than the every produce the farmer is producing every year or in every season. So there can be a value addition into the economy, and then at the same time the bank can purchase those commodities in advance at a lower perceived rate. So then when the bank receives those commodities, the bank can sell them at a higher price, or even before that, if the banks think that they are in need of money, they are short of liquidity, so they can sell that contract based on the first contract, that they can enter into a parallel salam contract and can deliver the commodities when they receive from their first contract to the seller in the second contract. So the parallel salam contract and salam contract, they both are independent of each other, and in the same way istisna and parallel istisna, they are again independent contract, but the subject matter here is different in the case of salam. In salam, the subject matter can be grown from in the fields and can also be extracted from the earth, from the land. But in case of istisna, the subject matter is the things that require manufacturing. And we also discussed the differences between salam and istisna contract. In salam contract, the price is paid at the spot and the goods are delivered in future, whereas in istisna contract, the price can be paid at the spot and it can be deferred, and the goods are delivered in the future. And the dealing with the contract itself is also different. In case of istisna contract, both the parties, they can cancel the contract before the manufacturing starts or it takes place. But in case of salam, both of the parties, they cannot quit from the contract after the contract has been signed and the payment is made. So these are the main differences. And also one of the key differences is the time of delivery. In case of salam, time of delivery is clearly mentioned into the contract, and it is a set or fixed date, whereas in case of istisna contract, it is not exactly a date, but a time is mentioned, like we gave the example like during the month of February or in the second week of February, but we don't mention exact date. So these are the key differences between Salam and Istisna. Hope you could understand the topic. So we'll meet inshallah in the next lecture. Till then, Assalamu alaikum.